I want to put out a call to action. I think that concerned American citizens and concerned first world citizens the world over, and really almost anyone who isn't already doing so, almost anyone living in a big city in a fairly normal way, anywhere in the world, I think this might apply. But certainly I would guess that Americans could not too complicatedly basically cut their work hours and their carbon footprint in half. And they would do that by simply cutting their expenses in half. Buy half as much shit, share space twice as much, use half as much energy, drive half as much, and work half as hard, and spend twice as much time with family of choice, family you're stuck with, whichever family, all of the above. I have a vision I want to share with you. I think that people could start working together again. Men and women, and people in families, and friends. And I think it's so simple that I don't think that any person with any real sense will be able to call it utopian. If people just start living together and pooling their resources, I think almost everything about life that is a huge pain could become much less of one. You don't need one of everything. That's what they want you to do. They need you to have your own phone. Hell, they want you to have your own washing machine, your own microwave oven. They'd make us all buy our own houses if they could. Every single person would live in their own individual existence, walled off from everyone else, like a honeycomb of catacombs. Here comes a truck. We're going to take a moment of silence. Like those Japanese sleeping pods at the airports, done in a honeycomb style. Yeah, that's exactly what they do. And that's just part of our culture. And I can get speculative about that, so I understand if maybe it sounds like horse poop when I say that. Like, there's this new Japanese author I just discovered from a friend. He wrote a book called Goodbye Stuff, and it's based on, it's a spin-off of like, he's a product of the new Japanese decluttering movement, and it's a kind of voluntary simplicity. And I would be the last to criticize that. And in fact, I think I'm going to order that book and try it for myself, because I have Marie Kondo's book. And I don't find that the KonMari method is appealing to me, and I think it's because she's not extreme enough, and also because I don't feel middle class enough. Whereas this guy, he just strips it down. He's like, what do I not need absolutely to live? And I've done that, and it's fun. I've let myself be robbed in, like, I mean, I'm not saying I made a complete choice about it, but in some kind of narrow sense, I think I kind of had some. I could have lived so that the probability of that happening was very, very small, and I chose not to. And that's because danger is fun, and because losing shit teaches you things that I apparently wanted to know. So I got down to the point of having like nothing but a toothbrush. And I was like walking around with like a grocery bag of, that was, you know, I like started accumulating stuff again after getting robbed. I've been robbed several times, like in Latin America, and just wind up with either nothing or close to nothing. Sometimes I just wound up with my passport left over. That was literally it, because luckily it was in a pocket. And I learned a lot. It's interesting. It's fascinating how little you need to survive. It's nothing like being a hunter-gatherer out on your own and losing all of your shit. Stuff. This was supposed to be an inoffensive video. I'm getting a little off the rails here. My call to action is just for people to team back up. And I feel like the beauty of this is that you don't need to like read any Daniel Quinn or any Noam Chomsky or any philosophy to like see the logic in it. If you just mash up American families, you can pool everything like a resource, and it becomes so much easier. Pooling childcare, pooling groceries, go to Costco for everything. You don't need any government permission. You don't need to form an NGO. You don't need to form a cult. You don't need to do anything weird. You just take two families and a normal home, and you stick two of them in it. And you say, okay, great. Now we've got 2 or 3 families living in a normal home, and instead of being little shits to each other such that, you know, little Johnny needs his room and little Jenny needs her room and I need my room and mom and dad need their room, but everybody's all split off and separate. Everybody has terrifying attitudes about sexuality. There's nothing you're going to do that's going to hurt your kids if they see it. There's no reason that you couldn't have privacy anyway. You could have the... I don't want to get too weird. There would be a million ways to make this work. There would be kinky ways to make it work. There would be poly ways to make it work. There would be ways to make it work for people who don't think that sex should be hidden from children at all. There would be ways to make it work for people who think, you know what, that's too crazy. You still can't have sex near or in front of your children. An obviously understandable proposition, given that that's what everyone thinks. And I don't know that we have any kind of clear anthropology to indicate which way is better. Yeah, people like me who suppose that we might be harming our children by hiding sex from them are making a guess in the woods, and we have no evidence. Partly because, you know, what would the evidence look like? Right now, only freaks would do that. And what are you going to do? Study the children of freaks for extra mental health? I mean, come on. You know, that's not going to work. And I say that because most people would consider that very, very freaky. I'm not actually calling you a freak if you do that. More power to you. I honestly think kids don't care. Kids innately are not at all squeamish about sex, and they would... I think if you raised kids in such a way that you were not hiding sex from them at all, and you just made sex like a part of life to where you're just not weird about it at all, I don't even think the kids would even notice. It wouldn't even, like, maybe they would finally start to notice in school if it's like, you know, some random story comes out, and, you know, I don't know. And that's like just about the worst issue I think you can think of. Just about the biggest call for separate spaces and privacy would come from something like that. I think everything else, it's just a matter of getting along. It's just a matter of not needing so much space. Would your average middle class 2,500 square foot home really be so crowded with like 10 or 15 people living in it? Would it really? 10 or 15 people who actually work well together. People who actually know how to share things. And it wouldn't even have to start that way. It could start with just 5 or 6 people, just 2 families sharing one house. There, bam. That's one set of bills cut in half. That's so much more time that you can spend engaging with yourself, figuring out what you're actually interested in. You don't have to go to work as much. And then on top of that, you could start buying up all the houses in the neighborhood. All you need to start a tribe is to buy 2 houses in one neighborhood that happen to maybe go on sale at the same time. Or you already have one house, and maybe you're already doing a semi-tribal thing there. And then a house, a mile away or a block away goes up for sale. And the people that you know that you've been associating with buy that house. And now your kids have anywhere that they can go. I mean, imagine a neighborhood where there's 10 or 15 different homes that the children, from their point of view, feel like all are their home. And all of those people are like parents. And no one is trying to control them because no one has unique control over them. Their very own parents don't have to control them anymore. So this is meant to appeal to you. This is meant to appeal to you if you're the kind of person who can imagine controlling your children is a burden, not a blessing. It's not a right. It's a job, and a very poopy one. I need to make up my mind about this swearing thing. Am I swearing on this video or am I not? Because it might be really stupid of me to not make up my mind. 11 minutes, 44 seconds. Okay, so I think that's it. I think that's most of it. I think I've made my call to action. I think I've put my idea out there. You can start buying up homes in a neighborhood. Then you can start a tribal thing that's not culty or weird. You don't need government permission. The government doesn't even need to know. That way they can't firebomb you. They can't swoop in and do a weird Waco thing on you because you're not doing a weird Waco thing. They don't even know. How the heck are they going to know? You buy the houses like normal people. I mean, maybe you put it in a trust, but it's like that just earmarks it as a weird thing. That could end up earmarking it as a tribal house. It's like, pick someone. Come on, pick someone that you trust to be part of the tribe and just put the house in their name and, put monies in and, God, I don't know, figure out ways. There's got to be ways that people can kind of hold each other accountable. I'm not asking for perfect utopian trust here, though I think that might be plenty possible in plenty of circumstances. I think there are plenty of people like me. Okay, I would be more than happy, and I can't imagine that I'm completely alone in this, to contribute my earnings, such as they are, which, have never been a great amount, but I would be more than happy to contribute my earnings to something where, in theory, the person could just take it from me, because, I'm helping them pay a mortgage on a house that's in their name. What's the difference between that and rent? When you rent from someone, you're helping them pay their mortgage in a house that's in their name, and you never get jack from that. Well, okay, so you're in the exact same scenario, only you're with someone that you consider family, and for ease of blah, 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 and because they're the ones that had the credit, and they're the ones that are putting their credit on the line, and they're the ones that are kind of being responsible. So, it all balances out. They've been the more responsible citizen in their lives. They have better credit. They buy a house. We put it in their name. We trust them a little bit. They're also the more trustworthy one in a way. Yes, in theory, they could transform what have been mortgage payments from you into rent payments from you by just changing their mind and effectively divorcing you and saying, all right, screw you guys, I'm not part of the tribe anymore, and look, the house is in my name, get out. Okay, fine. We go somewhere else. Tribalism is always optional. Membership is always optional. It's never like this weird commitment. It's never like signing a paper and saying, I'm going to stay here until I die. No, it's like, why would you want to leave your family? Why would you want to leave a group? The whole point is that it works well. Now, I understand that this can be very utopian in a way. I am at least vaguely aware of the history of communes and the whole movement and everything that's happened, and I understand that a lot of these things implode, a lot of these things fall apart. We've been doing this since the 60s. People have been trying. They go out and they start an organic farm, or they start a weird sex commune, and I know how all these things can get really, really hairy. I've heard of weird, I've heard of San Francisco communes, like the one from which we get the term compersion, where they had like I think this is the same one where they had like a sleeping schedule. No one was like no one was coerced into sex with anyone else, but they had like, you were supposed to at least share a bed with each other member of the tribe, you know, on some kind of schedule and all that. That's just ridiculous. I'm not saying anything remotely like that. We don't need to take such extremes. We just trust human nature. Human nature is that people will get frisky with each other in various ways to various degrees, and it doesn't have to be sexual. People will want to snuggle. Children will want to sleep in a pile. People in that pile will sometimes want to touch. People in that pile who are touching will sometimes feel aroused. It's not the end of the world. This isn't that complicated. You know, we're just like making mountains out of molehills endlessly, endlessly, endlessly. It's so simple. If you're uncomfortable, stop. You know? And again, the whole point of addressing sexuality is to hit the nail on the head. Look, that's the big demon, okay, at the center of all this. This is the big, awful devil that makes everything so complicated. How could you, I mean, oh, well, if we move two families into one home, what will happen if the woman from one family becomes attracted to the man from the other family? Oh, God, what will we do? They'll do whatever they want to do. They're friggin' adults. What difference does it make? Now, okay, yes, technically that's a poly household, and I guess you'd all have to be poly, which means maybe you'd have to kind of like change or something, you know. I'm not saying that that's the way everything would have to be. I'm sure you could have plenty of couples that can just become friends with each other, and they trust each other, and they're both so sure that they're just totally monogamous people, like just by their very nature, that I ask you, what's the problem? If you're just so sure that polyamory is not for you, great, great. Couple up, live, team up, raise your children together, because the point is that 6 people can raise 6 children so much easier than one person can raise one. And the studies on this, on at least part of this, are very clear. From listening to some Jordan Peterson, I've gotten it almost in a loop in my head that the children of divorce do not do well. That's been documented. Like again and again and again and again. Raised by one parent versus raised by 2, no question. No question. Now project that out and apply the old wisdom. It takes a village to raise a child. If children raised by 2 parents have demonstrably, statistically, from decades-long study, way better life outcomes, imagine doubling that yet again. And making sure those children have access to multiple parents, not just 2. So, this is what we could do. We can cut our expenses in half. We can cut our footprint to global chaos in half. We can buy some time and slow down what we're doing. And we can do it all while taking it a little bit easier, working approximately half as hard because we're spending approximately half as much money, and teaming up and finding each other and learning how to give ourselves to each other again. Because the absolute only thing making us miserable in the modern world where we have freaking everything. We've all got food to eat and space to live and clean water, and our sewage is plumbed right away before our very eyes. And yet, we really don't know if we're any happier than those third worlders out there, do we? Why is that? How can you have everything and be miserable? Well, I think it's simple. When you don't have each other, I think we're just isolated. We don't know how to give ourselves to each other anymore. And we're letting the corporations take over that process of atomization. And we're all just getting played. But we're getting played by ourselves. It's our own very culture that's doing it. And where does that culture exist? But in our heads. We're doing it to ourselves. So this is a not so modest proposal for how we could begin to reverse that. No crazy revolution required. Open your brain a little bit. You don't have to go poly. You don't have to get freaky. Though that stuff I think could really help. But you could be as sterile and Christian and monogamously paired off as you want, and you could still form something like community. By just living together, you don't need to buy land out in the middle of nowhere. You take your home you already own and you invite another family into it to live with you that you think that you could get close to. You don't invite that cantankerous grandparent that's really, really big pain in the butt, but maybe you do. But that's independent of this. This is you invite someone, you just pick a pair of friends and broach the idea. Especially maybe when they're falling on a little hard time. Why don't you guys just move in with us and like pay half the mortgage, and sometime down the line we'll like write you on to the property and, you know, make sure that you're paying into a, but for now, you know, I don't know, you're paying a whole mortgage and now you'd be paying half of one. It's got to be less, right? We can help each other raise our kids. Hell, we hang out all the time. Our kids sleep over all the time anyway. Why not?